Doma Sports Talk Worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. All right, y'all. Merry Christmas to those who do that. You know, most of us do Merry Christmas to you and yours. You know what I mean? Right now, it's a hard time, so hang in there, right? Hang in there. Be calm. Enjoy the holidays as best you can, right? Under these circumstances, because everybody that you want to be there or everybody that you want to visit, you can't really, right? So it's really hard, and we're getting anxious with all this that's going on right now. And then you turn on the news and it gets worse, right? And then you turn on this gap tooth dude right here, and then there's the most complaining going on, you know? So find something after you watch this that you like. You know what I'm saying? Something you might can laugh at, because this one might not be too funny. We're going to have to talk about Canelo Alvarez, you know, the face of boxing to many. People, a lot say he's pound for pound number one. Even right now, they're arguing because Terrence Crawford with ESPN is the number one pound for pound fighter. I have Terrence Crawford number one. Canelo is a top five, right? But there's some things that's going on with Canelo, you know, always, right? And another thing that we got to keep mentioning, right, that we don't, is, you know, it's a lot of these fighters in the top 10, which, you know, they should be banned from the top 10 after, you know, at least a year or two or something like that, after you're doped. We got to remember that. We got to stop not giving props or, you know, plus points to those who have never been doped in boxing, right? Because people are doped and they come back and, you know, matter of fact, by Canelo, people are alleging that he's still doping, but you can't prove that, right? But let's make sure this is clear. Canelo has been caught twice with clenbuterol, and you know, the levels are raised now, which means he could still be having some in the system because the level of the WBC has raised the levels. That's why the WBC is around, no matter what Canelo fights. But it's not only Canelo. Look at Tyson Fury, right? You know, he's heralded, but he was doped as well. You know, look, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, doped as well. You know, a lot of these fighters, if you dope, then damn it, you know, that top 10 pound for pound shouldn't be for you for a while. You know what I mean? But it's really, it's something wrong with that. That people don't say that, especially the fans. Once somebody get caught doping, especially more than once, you know, don't we have to be like, hold up, dog, you have to work your way back in here, right? Get our trust back. But normally that just doesn't happen, right? We know why, but whatever. It is an issue. So if you're going to argue about fighters, make sure that, you know, because the fighters that I'm kind of down with, most of them not doping or haven't, except for maybe Louis the Real King Kong Ortiz, right? But that was high blood pressure one time. But anyway, let me get into it, right? Canelo Alvarez beat Callum Smith in a very, very, very impressive manner, right? A couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think it is now, right? Canelo's a bad boy, but you're hearing that his next fight within 90 days is going to have to be Avni Yildirim, right? Like, it has to be Yildirim, right? He's number 2 at the WBC. First problem I have with that is the WBC had nothing to do with this fight with Callum Smith. It was for the WBA title. The WBC just came in there because their title is vacant and put it on the line for that fight with Callum Smith, which they could have said, hold up, we took it from David Benavidez at the beginning of the pandemic. He missed weight, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, we all understand that was a problem at the beginning. Now the people have got a little routine to figure out things are open and they're figuring out how to train through this pandemic. But at the beginning, it was an issue, right? They stripped David Benavidez, and he was undefeated and very dangerous, right? And now the title is vacant, okay? And we're trying to give it to Yildirim, who was number 2. And I don't know why Yildirim is number 2. And Canelo has to fight this guy, according to the WBC, who actually, let's make sure it's clear, had nothing to do with that fight, right? So you're wondering, well, why would they do that? Why would he have to fight Yildirim? Yildirim must be all that. I'm probably the only one who says Yildirim is not that bad. Like I said before, when Chris Eubank Jr. stopped him with an awesome combination, I was saying after that fight, I don't know if anybody else is going to do that to Yildirim. But let me just show you what Yildirim did after that. Now, Yildirim fought a guy, Attila Corder, after Eubank, 13-6. That's what we fought, right? Beat him. Then he fought a guy named Derek Edwards, 27-7-1. Beat him unanimous decision. Then he beat Ryan Ford, who was 14-2, unanimous decision. Pretty good. Now after that, he fought a guy named Jose Savencia. This guy was 3 wins, 31 losses, and 3 draws. That's who he fought. Now after that, he fought a guy Lalinga Mac, right? 42-14. Just beat him with a majority decision. And after that, he loses to Darrell. Now think about it, guys. He's a mandatory. You got to fight this guy. And his last fight is a loss, right? Against Darrell. And before that, he fights somebody with 42 wins and 14 losses. And wins by majority decision. Before that, he fights somebody with 3 wins and 31 losses. Does that sound like momentum to you? Right? That's just, what the hell does Canelo have to fight him for? You know, those are the kind of things that just, you know, it's just a trip. And the WBC had nothing to do with the fight. So now all of a sudden, Canelo goes up to 168 and he beats Callum Smith, right? Make sure, but he could have fought, you know, some other people. But Callum Smith is going to be respected because he did win the WBSS tournament. And if you win that tournament, just because when you get in that tournament, for me, you're going to be respected. Because that's, you know, at least the tournament is about the best in a division, trying to find out who the very best guy is in that division. And you have to get behind things like that because boxing doesn't want to know who the best is. We just want to anoint people and then, you know, let them not fight people, and then we can just say this is the guy, right? And the WBSS tournament doesn't get anybody, you know, doesn't get sponsors. It's having problems staying above water right now because of the simple fact, hey, we don't want nothing like that in boxing, now do we? Well, we can find out who the very best is? So that's what the problem with the WBSS tournament. So Callum Smith did win that. You have to give him props for that. But everyone, before the fight, you can see the odds and everything else. He's tailor-made for Canelo. Canelo did exactly what we said he was going to do, right? It reminds me just of the same thing with Kovalev at the time. You know, you can say, hey, well, Kovalev is still Kovalev, right? But then you don't look at, you know, the things that really happened in that fight. Like, I didn't fight Demetrius Andrade for undisputed, and I went up in weight to fight Kovalev, who had just didn't have enough time to recover from his Anthony Yarde fight. Why would I do that when I have an undisputed fight here at middleweight, right? And let me just go do something else. But then if I go and wait for Kovalev, the people that, you know, won't really say something, right? But I am undisputed in middleweight division. You had it. Didn't even want it. So I don't know if Avni Yildirim in the next 90 days is a fight that Canelo should have to take, right, in the 168-pound division. There's other fights out there, right, we won't get into right now, but there's other fights out there. I don't think that has to be a problem. Everybody look at what Avni Yildirim has done and just check it out. See if this is the guy that's supposed to be in the way of bigger, better fights, competitive fights with Canelo, right? And like, for example, if you're going to fight a Yildirim, listen, right? The WBC is involved now, right? So they just pulled you up in 168-pound division, where you have a guy from the WBC, who is the WBC champion at 160, wanting to fight Canelo at 168 for that WBC championship. And that would be Charlo. Let's just see if they're going to ignore that, because remember this. Charlo was his mandatory, and that's when the franchise came into play. And Canelo was able to go do what he wants to do. So if we want a fight, I don't have to say Andrade on this video. I'll say Charlo, who says, yeah, I'll go up to 168 to fight Canelo. There you have at least a formidable opponent who is the WBC champion at 160, wanting to become the WBC champion at 168. There's a storyline. Texas, who you just brought a guy from Britain to go fight in Texas. This guy, Charlo, is from Texas. Now, we can't fill up the stadium right now due to COVID, but you're going to tell me there's a bigger fight for Canelo than that if he's going to have to fight for the WBC? Let's see if they ignore that. I can guarantee you Mauricio Sulaiman will ignore that, just like he made the franchise championship so Canelo can ignore it. These are the things that should not be happening. And it's not Canelo hating, it's hating things that are not fair. It's really that simple. Dome Sports Talk, worldwide. and I'm up out of here, y'all.